I do not condone violence in any shape or form. I do not take any calls of action. These statements are all opinion and alleged. I do not establish any of these things as fact. Covering all my legal assets. Please don't kill me. United Healthcare or Blue Cross or any other health organizations out there. Okay, all right. Am I covered? All right, covered. Yeah. Probably not anymore. Hello, I am CraftyAndy, and I figure today, before I get into the topic at hand, I establish some commonality between me and the potential viewers out there. So here are a list of concerns that I have when it comes to living out my daily life as a bisexual male in a gay poly relationship / marriage. All right. Number 1, being able to do as I please without bringing any harm to anyone else around me. Number 2, to, within reason, work a job or provide a service and take care of myself and my family. Oh, well, that's it. I'm confident in thinking that you probably relate to that more so than any kind of billionaire concern who's just mainly focused on making as much money as possible, consequences be damned. I'm glad I was able to destroy the artificial divide that was wedged between us as a people, and we can unite as one species of humanity and start making things better for everybody else. Alright, well that's it. Or wait, or maybe I could get into the actual topic at hand, which is a story about 2 shooters, Luigi Mangione and Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof walked into the Charleston church in South Carolina. He shot and killed 9 people, injuring 1. The people in this church were targeted by this Eugene for the crime of living while black. According to his manifesto, his hope was to start a race war. There is a personal website he owns sprawling with neo-Nazi imagery.
The website discovered over the weekend shows Roof in dozens of photos. It includes a lengthy statement criticizing blacks as, quote, inferior.
And as a side note, it doesn't seem like his beliefs fall far from the tree because his sister was arrested for making similar threats. This Eugene was tracked down by the Popo and arrested alive. There was no walk down to the courthouse by the arresting police force and filmed by the media as a display for all to gander at. There was no concern whether or not this Eugene's human rights were being violated or right to a fair trial was being undermined.
There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference, Your Honor? That just made it utterly political. And as Your Honor knows, under Lauro v. Charles, the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has held it to be clearly established that these staged perp walks to the media, unrelated to a legitimate law enforcement objective, is unconstitutional, and I submit there was zero law enforcement objective to do that sort of perp walk. There's absolutely no need for that whatsoever, and frankly, Your Honor, the mayor should know more than anyone about the presumption of innocence that he too is afforded when he dealing with his own issues, and frankly, I submit that he was just trying to detract from those issues by making a spectacle of Mr. Mangione.
The rhetoric that often inspires these actions was dismissed. After all, throwing the name George Soros around and DEI isn't the same as throwing up swastikas and Sikh Hiles. I'm sure they'll eventually switch to Bill Gates and America First chants instead, but I digress. Despite discussions, this Eugene was charged for hate crimes but was not charged as a terrorist. There may have been talks, but never any effort to propose funding to, say, mental health programs, education, gun reform, discussions regarding the perpetuated made-up idea of race. That was nice, but we instead ultimately get distractions after a quick dismissal of this person being a lone wolf. Like there wasn't a number of people who cheer this on within their own little echo chambers on the net. There would be many other bigoted, motivated shootings that happen, but in the end, what legislation do we see effectively get passed in the states though? Anti-trans laws? and just flat out anti-queer laws wearing the disguise of child protection. As if it's so hard for a parent to control what their child sees on the internet. The trans people are coming to trans your kids with their ideology and cutting them up. What ideology? What kids are being cut up? So a force comprising of less than 1% of the population and no legislative power is just magically turning kids trans. Almost similar to what they used to say about gay people turning kids gay. I am convinced most self-proclaimed conservatives don't give a shit nor believe this shit, despite how loud it may seem on the internet. But those are just vibes. The point of this is to lay out the groundwork on how this all played out compared to Luigi Mangione.
And 1 person every minute and a half is dying in this country because they're being held hostage by the health insurers. Every person that dies does not just die. They are killed by the health insurance system. They are assassinated. They are executed by the capitalist system for profit.
When the state failed to arrest and prosecute the alleged, in my opinion, mass murderers who run the billion-dollar healthcare industry that primarily makes its money by denying life-saving procedures or leaves their clients with a massive bill, sentencing them to a slow death of poverty.
Myself, I'm about to be homeless. Like, I lost everything. I was making about $114K a year, and now I'm down to nothing. When I went to the disability office and everything, I did that over a year and a half ago, and I'm still pending in the courts. I haven't had a first court date.
Luigi Mangione committed an act of self-defense, in my opinion, on behalf of the victims of people like Brian Thompson, David Cordani, Gail Bordeaux, Karen S. Lynch, Andrew Whitty, Bruce Broussard, Joseph M. Zubretsky, Sarah M. London, John Kao. They all took charge of an operation that over the course of decades murdered hundreds of thousands of people. And the ones who came before them, starting with the Nixon administration, which allowed healthcare companies to put profit over giving people a fair chance at a comfortable life. Allegedly, my opinion.
And I went into it in some depth. All of the incentives are toward less medical care because the less care they give them, the more money they make. And the incentives are on the right way.
I am proposing today a new national health strategy. I want America to have the finest health care in the world.
The plan hatched between Nixon and Edgar Kaiser worked. In the ensuing years, patients were given less and less care.
Bigger log jams at the nearby public hospital and less quality medical care. Been in by 18 hours.
While the health insurance companies became wealthy, the system was broken.
37 million Americans are without protection against catastrophic illness.
The losers are the poor, who may now postpone urgently needed health care until it's too late.
These allegedly mass murderers, who made themselves millionaires through the lives they stole, are allowed to walk free despite their crimes. Is this the world you want to live in, where if you have enough money by virtue of being rich, you receive legal leniency by the state to the point of being able to commit murder through the stroke of a pen? Ooh, they have families? Well, so did a lot of the Nazis. So did Osama bin Laden. Should we not have stopped Osama bin Laden because he had a family? Luigi Mangione was charged as a terrorist. He was paraded around the city like a Gotham City villain. There are talks of setting up a hotline exclusively for executives and CEOs to call for support.
In the fallout from the murder investigation of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, the office of New York Governor Kathy Hochul is convening a safety summit tomorrow between nervous business leaders and law enforcement. CNN has learned the safety concerns among executives are so widespread, New York State may create a special hotline just for CEOs to call in threats.
Alleged human abuser Elon Musk all of a sudden wants to look like an actual father and uses his baby as a meat shield during meetings. Blue Cross reversed course on limiting the amount of time they will cover surgical anesthesia, almost like direct action does inspire change, not just ineffectual online anger. The message is clear with how the media reacts to Brian Thompson's death compared to all the other mass shootings that include thousands of dead people and business practices that murder more people a month than the Twin Towers falling after a terrorist attack that was also a result of foreign United States policy. How many times do we look back at mass shooters and see all the warning signs? Yet all of a sudden we are locking up mothers who repeat the words deny, depose, defend over the phone. Seems a little inconsistent. Seems like there's a imbalance when it comes to priorities. Look, the reason most people don't take direct action, let's be real, it's because we got too much to lose still. Who knows at what level it has to get before people actually take action? Up until this point, when it was racists and other weirdo bigots terrorizing people for doing drag shows, or their god emperor lost a fair election, it was all fun and games for those who in charge to watch. I think one can make a whole comparison to the reaction to Wall Street protesters to supremacist rallies.
I'm talking about the real owners now. The wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. Now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street.
The thing the owners don't want us to realize is that we are the running man. We are the Squid Game contestants. We are the point system in Death Race 2000. We are in the Hunger Games. We are to be a good shoe and provide obedient, ignorant workers.
Know your place. Keep your place. Be a shoe.
The real owners of this country and world at this point are fine with the idea of us killing each other over superstitious nonsense, immigrant status, color of our skin, but when it's aimed at those who run the system, all of a sudden violence is never the answer.
Baba Shakti today held a public prayer for victims of the ongoing land disputes, advocating that violence is never the answer.
Violence is never the answer is a privileged statement by those who never had to fight for the right to exist. The great God Emperor is president again. An octogenarian is going to run our country with co-president Elon by his side. Think we'll get some healthcare reform? Think there won't be taxes on tips? How about we abolish the tip system and put in place the living wage at $20 an hour at least? Think we'll get that? How about Roe v. Wade being returned? Instead, what we'll get is a bunch of more rhetoric, demonizing immigrants, and trans and queer people in general. There's a quote from Lyndon B. Johnson I think resonates pretty well today. If you could convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. It applied when he said it, and it applies today. While we're all distracted and fighting over each other in regards to superficial differences, queer, straight, cis, trans, immigrant, legal and illegal, the owner class are just making off with the coffers. Now, there are many laws and rules in place that do make sense, like calls for violence are not acceptable, especially if it's against a vulnerable type of person. A state that takes care of its citizens would recognize this and apply a response accordingly. It's also a hefty fine for dumping oil down a sewage drain for many good reasons. For any billionaire, though, human rights violations and fines are just the cost of doing business.
And promised to use it as a non-hazardous landfill. But instead, they dumped PFOA byproduct straight into the Lands Creek, which led into the Ohio River. He started a class action suit against DuPont, representing around 80,000 people in the Ohio Mid-Valley area. In 2005, the EPA settled with DuPont for $16.5 million for withholding information, which is something like 0.1% of its revenue. At the same time, this was the largest fine in the agency's history.
Now that we are aware of how much we have in common, we can ignore and look past all the fake fear-mongering promoted by media and leaders in regards to immigrants, queers, atheists, Jews, blacks, Palestinians, religious people, as in, it doesn't fucking matter what you believe in as much as the why, and if it influences your viewpoints on governing policy. Alright, so now that we put that aside, I think maybe we could say enforcing some of our monopoly laws, break up the 10 companies that control almost all our food, and the 6 companies that control the majority of our media. I mean, are we all okay with that? As I opened this video up, I imagine the poorest illegal immigrant, poorest white, black, to the average middle class person, and even some of the lucky millionaires falls in line with nearly all of that. Maintaining the present and seeking a better future. Everything else is just superficial nonsense, like, I hope this new video game isn't a flaming pile of buffalo diarrhea. When it comes to ants like us, the owners will always have the same kind of fear. All throughout history there are examples. Indentured servants and slaves uniting and fighting back against their oppressors. Blacks and whites joining together in meetings when it was illegal to fight for better working conditions. And so on. Instead of getting angry over some song lyrics regarding fudge rounds or letting yourself believe in conspiracies that have no evidence outside of a biased source with a conflict of interest too lengthy to list off here, maybe keep in mind that at the end of the day, the working class have a lot more in common and there isn't a billionaire who would piss on you if you were on fire. We are all part of the working class, cogs in the system, blue collar, white collar, black, white, queer, straight, cis, and trans. What are the owners without their workers? What kind of society will we have with no artists, entertainers, doctors, teachers, laborers, farmers, tradesmen, garbage detail, sewage maintenance? They convinced us janitorial work is paid what it is because anyone can do it. Can you do it? Can you physically get on your knees, scrub shit off toilets, and carry garbage all day for 40 hours a week? What would things look like if janitors went on a general strike for several weeks? What use are executives anyways? It's not like the machines stop running when they're away. How did they convince us that it was okay for them to get paid 300% more than our average salary? I mean, you know, the means of production are right there for us to grab. Those are just my thoughts. Once again, I do not condone murder. I do not condone any kind of violent action because that would go against YouTube's TOS. Subscribe to the damn channel and share it around. I got a store for art and other creations of mine. Patreon to get some extra perks while helping me feed myself. Paws Off gaming channel with a talking weasel. And Weird Source for cringe furry shit you love.